All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Free Friday coaching call. This call happens the first and third Fridays of every month. And for those of you that may be joining for the first time live or joining for the first time via recording, how this call came about is after years, years and years and years of Rick being a national trainer, speaker, and coach in the real estate industry, as well as a top performing agent and team here in the San Francisco Bay Area. He, for those of you that knew him, had one of the most big, kind, generous hearts out there. And so everywhere he went and every class he taught, he'd give out his cell phone number and he would always say, "You need anything, I mean, anything at all, you give me a call." And so he ended up coaching a lot of people that did not hire him, but that were, calling for help because he meant what he said when he was there to help people succeed in their businesses and in their lives. And so over time, his capacity shortened. And the busier he got, he still wanted to be able to have that conversation and support in two areas: skill set and mindset for real estate agents in the community. And so this call was birthed out of that desire and that commitment. And while he passed away last October, and we all miss him dearly, this is part of continuing his legacy as really being a change agent in the industry, knowing that if we're not in growth, we're in decay. If we're not living, we're dying. And so in order to continue to grow and be the best that we can be, it's a commitment to that continual evolution, to masterminding and being in conversations with people, learning from each other, sharing freely. So this call happens, it's company agnostic. And we're here from, brand new agents will be on this call all the way up to seasoned agents on this call. And over 600 people that have requested to be on the mailing list to make sure they get the recordings after these happen for those that are not able to make it live. So I'm excited to welcome you all to the call today. I do have an invitation, and it's an invitation we make each time. And that is, we don't care what you look like. We'd love to see you on video. And the reason for that is twofold. Number one, it creates a greater sense of connection and community. Number two, it's going to support you in creating a greater level of value in the call, because it's going to help to focus your attention and your intention. And time is the most valuable thing that we all have. And giving the gift of being present is a gift that we give ourselves and to other people. So at any point in time, for those of you that have not yet joined us on video, that is your open invitation, gentle nudging from Casey to do that. And so I'm very excited for today's guest. I met him recently, and just before we get into actually bringing him into the conversation and the introduction of him, my experience of him was so refreshing. And there's a couple of reasons why. I find in life that a lot of times our environments are so important, and they shape the way that we think, the way that we feel, the way that we act, the way that we behave. And it's very clear that he has put himself in environments that are going to support growth and change. And the longer we get into a career path and a journey and we start to understand it and know it, and it's like, I remember being a new agent back in 2005 and everything was new. So it was all brand new, and the challenges of being a brand new agent, but going through the process of learning, and then you get your feet under you and you know what it's going to take. And then you realize what it's actually going to take to sustain a career in real estate long term, and the growth and evolution that would require. And so the reason that I was so inspired in the conversation with him is that he has a completely open perspective as to what's possible. He's not in comparison of himself to anyone else. He's out there wanting to be the absolute best that he can be for his clients and for his family. And to me, that is really inspiring. And there is a story, which is actually a true story, about a flea in the jar. How many of you guys know about the flea in the jar? Just by a show of hands. Have I never told this story? Okay, one of you knows about the flea in the jar. So fleas are known for jumping, right? And they jump, right? And so if you catch a handful of fleas and you've got one of those glass jars, like a mason jar that you can put a lid on, and you've got fleas in the jar, the fleas will jump, and they will jump high enough to where they'll hit the lid of that jar. And over time, they get conditioned to the lid. And if you were to remove the lid from the jar, what you'll find is that the fleas will not jump out of the jar because they will never jump past the conditioning of the lid that they've become accustomed to. And so one of the reasons why I'm really excited to have Dawson on the call today to interview him is because he doesn't have a lid. And you're going to see and get to learn about that experience firsthand. And my goal and objective for everyone on this call today is that you walk away a better agent today with a shifted mindset, an expanded view of what's possible, and the willingness to take action to go do it. Because the truth is, if one can, anyone can. And therefore, that means every single person on this call can. So Dawson, thank you so much for being willing to join us this morning on the call. And for those of us that are meeting you for the first time, which is everyone except for 3 people on the call today, would love for you to share, who's the Dawson? I know you're a family man, you're married, and have a daughter, but who's the person that was the guy before real estate? Tell us about that guy.
So it's kind of crazy. I appreciate you letting me get on this call. I was a tooling technician. I was a maintenance guy straight out of high school. I graduated and I went right into a factory. Um, and I was there for about 4 years and just kind of a maintenance guy, tooling technician. That's basically what I did before.
Okay. How'd you get into that?
It was kind of funny. I had a choice to either go on a mission when I graduated, or my parents were like, "Hey, you need to get a job," because my whole goal was I wanted to marry my wife. We were high school sweethearts, and I was like, you know what, like I need to save up some money. I want to buy a house, and I want to start my life. That's how it all got started there, and that's how I started my old job.
Okay. And that was how many years ago?
That was well, I started right in 2019, right after I graduated, and then literally I've only been in this job for 9 months now.
All
So
right.
basically 4 years.
Yeah, so you're in the tooling job and you're wanting to, grow and have a family. And then you had something that was definitely a life-changing experience. And I don't want to get I will go as deep as that as you would like to go. However, I feel like it's important for people to understand because everyone on this call is either going through something right now, is coming out of going through something right now, or something is headed their direction that they're going to be going through. And I think the human element is really important for people to connect with. So, what was that thing for you?
So yeah, absolutely. I'll go like deep into it. I want everyone to know like you face challenges in your life. It's actually been 2 years since this event on the 4th of August, but August 4th of 2022, I had one brother, my little brother. He was 19 at the time, and he got in a motorcycle accident, and he sadly passed away. Kind of crazy. 2 months before that, we did a Spartan race together, and during that whole moment before his passing, we were getting ready. We're like, you know what? We're gonna try bodybuilding. We're gonna try it. We're gonna see what we can do. And that whole time, like I tell everyone, with your like younger siblings and stuff, when you're growing up in a household, you're forced to be friends. And like when you graduate, you're moving off. That's when you choose to be friends. And that was the hardest thing because I was like so close to him. Those last, like when I got out of the house, like we literally chose to be friends. And when he passed away, like like it's crazy because you always repeat those every day. That same thing that happened. Um, for instance, in my old
How did it
job,
change?
what was that?
I
We had
think
someone come off mute. I took care of it.
Oh, okay, all good. But yeah, basically, like going back, like you have a lot of those life changing experiences. Um, it was just crazy. I look at it, and it sucked. It sucked really bad because a lot of the grieving process, you don't know how to like really deal with it the first time, because that was the only like major death I ever had in my family. Really young. My brother, it was crazy. My young brother, I was like, it's kind of crazy. I was like looking up to him because he got like super jacked and stuff, and I was like, after I graduated, I put on some pounds and stuff. I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm like I need to do better. And it's crazy that whole experience where it is there to now, what it has like just grown out of the roof. Um, like I said, it's sad tragedy, but a lot of people go through a lot of things, and you never know what people go through. And just this, what all happened there, like going into depth with it, like really sad deal.
So you had a life-changing experience, right? I mean,
Yeah.
just the passing of your brother unexpectedly and the closeness of that relationship. And everybody goes through their own process that's unique and individual to them. So I read something recently that said, when it's the darkest, it's not that you've been buried, it's that you've been planted. And I know there was a period for you that was really dark. However, that darkness also led to a change in your life and a change in your career. So tell us about that transition.
So it was like really crazy. So I was going through this dark time. Like my parents, it was super hard. It was like 4 days after my brother passed. It was, oh man, like we're getting like really personal, but anyways, like really dark thoughts, going into depth. And like only 4 days after my brother passed, I found out I was becoming a dad. And like I was having, well, at then I didn't know I was a daughter yet, and I was terrified. I was like, oh my gosh, like I don't know what to do, like I'm dealing with the grieving process. I have so many things going on at the time, and I have this job. Like I'm telling you, I'm just maintaining life just to get by. It it was miserable. Like I look back at it and I'm like, we're gonna fast forward a few months later. Like I'm still trying to grieve. I'm going through the process. I'm trying to do better. Um, my wife's pregnant. She's trying to help me, and I'm trying to be the best husband I can because I'm gonna be a dad. Like that was like the switch. Like those 4 days were so dark, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm gonna have a daughter. Like I need to step up. Like I need to step up. Kind of, it was a blessing in disguise. Like a lot of people are like, you go into it and you're like, what changes? Like how did you change from that person? Like I look back, I'm a completely different person. But all of a sudden, we're getting down to it. We hit the year mark, the first year my brother passed, and it starts getting really crazy. This is when everything like transforms. Um, I remember it was really dark. My daughter was like 2 months at the time, maybe even a month old, and we were driving back from my grandparents' cabin. I took vacation, and I remember we're driving back, and I tell my wife, I have like a mental breakdown in our truck driving back. And I'm like, what am I doing? I hate my life. I don't want to go back to work. I have a daughter, like she was the best baby ever. Like she wasn't crying or anything, but I'm like, I'm a dad. Like I'm at that time, I'm like 22, 23 years old. And I'm like, what am I doing with my life? Right. And I kind of had like a miracle like light bulb come up, and my wife's like, what would you do? Like what would you do if you leave? Like in our town, you either are an entrepreneur and you're super successful, or you work in the factory. And all of a sudden I get this phone call and kind of a text. I'm like, who's calling me? Like I'm literally like almost like kind of crying. But before that phone call, I'm like, oh, you know what, I could become a real estate agent. No idea about real estate, nothing. I bought my first house when I was 20. I felt really proud about myself. And I brought it up to my wife. Like it was like 2 minutes after that. I get this call and this message from my one buddy, Fed. And he's like, hey, man. He's like, I owe you a round of golf. And he's like, I told you I'm going to bring you down. And he's like, when are you available? And I'm like, he's like, well, are you off during the week? I'm like, yeah, I'm off these certain days. And he's like, well, I'm going to make this happen. Like this golf course, if you say no, especially if you're a big golf fan like me, you're dumb. Like you got to go. Like it's a once in a lifetime for certain people. And I went. And that's when it got really crazy in this moment. My buddy Fed, he was super good friends with my brother too at the gym. Like if you look at Fed, he looks like a Greek god. Like he's Mr. like Idaho Cup. He's won. Like he's huge. He looks great. he's a crazy guy. He's probably one of the most nice, genuine people I've ever met. But in that moment, I'm like, I told my wife, "Oh, this is so cool." Like we dropped everything. Like I'm like, I'm gonna go play at Blue Lakes Country Club. Like this is like crazy. So, anyways, it's a few days later. Go on, and I meet Fed, like real, like the real legit Fed. Um, and I'm like, he's like telling me, he's like, well, Dawson, what are you like doing with your life? I'm just having a great time, uh, decent round of golf, you know how it goes. And he's like, what are you doing? Like, what do you do? And I'm like, oh, I'm a tooling technician. And he's like, do you like your job? And I'm like, oh yeah, yeah. And he's like, you're a liar. He's like, you are such a bad liar. And he says, like, you're gonna call this person and you're gonna have an interview, like within like a few days. And I'm like, what? For what? And then all of a sudden he brings up real estate a little bit. And I'm like, uh-oh. Like, I no joke. The first thing he told me, he actually drove to Twin. It's like a 45-minute drive to this golf trip. And he tells me, he's like we're going all into it, and he's like getting in depth and stuff. And this one book like changed my life completely. Like I had this one direct mindset, didn't believe in anything's like possible. And he's like, Dawson, you need to read this book, The Secret. He's like, you need to read it. He's like, this will change your life. And he's like, before you go meet this person for your interview, he's like, you have to read it. And I'm like, how am I going to read this with 12-hour shifts, And I'm like, okay, I'll listen to Audible, and read it a little bit when I can. Well, all of a sudden, I'm reading this book, listening to it at my old job. And my life, like my whole like vision and everything in life just changed. Because growing up, I was never told like I can manifest, right? Like I'm a big thing in manifestation. Like if you can see it, you'll do it. And I remember like it's crazy. Like just a year ago, I get into a situation. I have this interview like just after talking with Fed at the golf course. Like it was maybe like 2 or 3 days after. And I'm like, you know what? I know who this is, right? It's my old real estate agent. And I'm like, this is going to be awkward because all she remembers is this 20-year-old kid that, like, back then, like, I was nice, really nice guy, but I was totally different. Like, after reading this book and everything, like doing all of like the lifting and stuff, I'm completely different. Like when she remembered me, I was like fat. And I was like, okay, and I was scared. Like I was like scared to go into this interview because I have no idea about real estate. No idea.
So,
And
so you're a factory worker, your buddy takes you golfing and calls you out, and
yeah,
basically
full
when
on calls me out.
yeah, calls you out and is just like, dude, you're a liar. Like you're not happy. You need to change what you're doing and go have this interview. The interview ends up being with a real estate agent that you bought your house from 3 years, almost 4 years prior.
Yeah, it's like three years, like 2.5, almost 3 years.
Okay.
And
Oh,
like I'm telling you, it was so crazy because my old job, like I'm gonna be completely honest with you guys, it was paycheck to paycheck. They're like, hey, like we need you to work overtime, blah blah blah. Like it was so bad. Like I worked 12-hour shifts, like in 100 degrees, all the time. And I like with that job, it's really hard. Like I'm lifting like 160-pound molds, at my job, like 90-pound molds throughout the day. And I remember for this interview, because like I'm listening to this book while I'm at work. I have my little AirPod in. I'm in my back doing my maintenance stuff, and I'm just like, how is this stuff like true? Like this book, right? I'm like, how is this like my whole life growing up? Like my parents weren't like big into that, and we're like, oh, like you just do you find the job and you do it the rest of your life. Like that's where you're meant to be. You maintain in life. You're not struggling. You maintain. You're doing good. And I
it's so
remember going,
yeah, it's so interesting that you say that because the book The Secret by Rhonda Byrne was also a movie, however many years ago. And it's the what you're talking about is so key. It's this power of conditioning of how we're programmed based on the environment that we're raised in, which you just described. Like get a job, create some phantom sense of stability, because what's actually stable? Nothing, really, even though it may feel like it for a moment. And then, you're good, right? Status quo. And then you have somebody that sees something in you that's willing to be honest with you. So for those of you that are, that are on this call, some of you have real estate teams or building real estate teams, and may go, oh, I don't want to work with a new agent, or new agents is not the place that I want to be. And now we've got somebody here on the call. It's like 23, 24 years old. In his first 9 months has closed 24 transactions. And you go, okay, well, what's different about this guy that has me reframe or rethink a prejudice that I might have about somebody new getting into the industry, and what that experience is going to be like for me if I'm looking to change careers, or what that experience is going to be like for me if I'm building a real estate sales team and I'm looking at having someone, newer come into that space and that team. So you have, your mindset, you're already working on your mindset. The book is like changes that perspective for you and what you can see is possible now. And I call it being sick and tired of being sick and tired. You were at a place where you were sick and tired of being sick and tired, and you then saw a different possibility because of the personal development that you had done with yourself by going through that book. And that leads you to the interview, which ultimately gets you into the business, right?
Yeah.
And so for people that are on this call, I know the question and the topic that everyone's like dying to dive into is, okay, well, you've been in the business 9 months and you've closed 24 deals and you're 24 years old, and you don't come from a family that sells real estate. You didn't know anything about real estate prior to now. Like, there's a lot of questions that sit in that space. So
Oh yeah.
would love to start with number one, why did you decide, so you go for the interview and you decide that this is something that you're going to pursue. What was it that what was that decision for you that was the catalyst?
So, like, I owe a lot to my boss, right? Desi Williams. I no joke. When I came into this interview, like, I had my mind. I told my wife, I was like, you know what? Like, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna meet with her old real estate agent, and gonna see like how to even get my license, all this stuff. I walk in, and she's like, Dawson, how are you? I'm like, oh, I'm doing good, Like, I'm dressed up for an interview, and we just start talking. All of a sudden, it just like clicks. And she, no joke, like, I'm telling her, like, this is my vision. Like, after reading this book, this is what I want to do. I want to change my life completely. And she goes, you have no idea. She's like, I've been trying to grow a team. And she's like, she does the same stuff. She manifests, does breath work. And she goes, I've been waiting for someone to come in here and tell me what they want. She's like, I've been waiting like a year. She's like I cannot believe this. Like, this interview went like an hour and a half. I'm not even joking. There was like tears, like all this stuff. And I remember at the end of this interview, she's like, Dawson, even if you fall flat on your face, I'm gonna drag you to the finish line. She's like, I'm not gonna let you fail because you have a wife and you have a daughter. Like, I'm not gonna let you fail. Like, I'm gonna be here the whole way. And that was like huge because I was like, you know what? Like I'm telling you, my parents, after this whole interview, went great, right? I went home, like, like right before I walked out the door, Desi's like, there's your desk. Like, go get licensed and let's get this rolling. I tell my wife right after this interview, like, I'm excited. Like, we all know, like, it's straight commission, right? And I tell my wife all this good news. And she's like, Dawson, like, we maybe, because we just had a baby, like, savings is drained. We might have $1,000 in our savings. And like, to get your license and everything, it's like 2 grand, and like, you need everything. And then all of a sudden I tell my parents, like, my mom and dad, we get like super close in this scenario because I tell them what I'm gonna do. They look at me like I'm crazy. My dad, he's 58 years old. He's worked one job 23 years. Well, now 24 years. Just never changed, wants to maintain, just get through. And he goes, Dawson, like, I do not want to crush and break your dreams. But you know what you're getting into? Like, These people have done it 10, 20 years. And you think you're just going to walk in to our population of mini casual, like Burley area? Like, you just think you're going to walk in, you're just going to take over this market or what? Like, what's your whole thought to this? Like, you have no insurance for your daughter. You are risking a lot. You have a house payment, you have a truck payment, you have insurance, blah, 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 bills, 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 bills. And I'm like, and I just had this fire in me. I was like, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to change this. I'm going to change it completely. The one thing that I can tell people is you need somebody to basically like give you the thought, right? I had fed like, oh, you can do this. You got to have your supporter, like my wife. It was the day after my mom called me after I talked to her. She's crying on the phone. She's lost her son. She's like, Dawson, like, you're risking a lot. And she says, at this time, I'm like barely 23. She's like, Dawson, you need to just do it. You need to do it. Who cares what your dad thinks? Just do it. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do this. So I'm doing my licensing all through my breaks at work. And then on my days off, like, I'm shadowing. Like, I can't do nothing real estate. Like, all I can do is come into the office in the real estate and just shadow. Like, I can't do nothing. So I'm just shadowing. And I go into it and I get my license. So this is what happened. It's like about a week before I get my license activated.
Pause 1 second. So it's the
Okay.
week your license activated, and just I want to anchor a couple of things that you said because they're really important.
Yeah.
So, how many people, just by a show of hands, that are on the call today, have people that love and care about you so much that have a paradigm of fear that they look through the lens of life at and are very uncomfortable with the unknown and would want to save you or protect you from falling, just by a show of hands? A lot of people, right? And sometimes these are the people that love us the most. And so that can feel like not having support in the area that you want support from, because they're the people that you care about the most, right? However, there's another piece that I want to anchor that you shared, Dawson, that's really important. And that is that when someone catches a vision and they take personal responsibility for it, they are willing to walk through walls and change themselves to make that a reality. And when I always say, he or she who is most certain wins. And if your level of certainty exceeds the uncertainty of the people that you're surrounded with, their uncertainty doesn't matter, because over time they're going to see what you already see that they're not able to see yet by you going out and doing that. So for people that, and this is so important also just in the marketplace that we're in today with the changes that are going on in the industry and consumers, is that when you have that there's one person that you're responsible for in life, and ultimately, and that's you. It's your posture, your confidence, your belief, and what you've got to do to get yourself really strong in those areas so that you take that person out into your life. And this is what you're explaining in a different way of saying it, that you've done, right?
Yeah.
And it's not rocket science. Like, anyone can go do those things. But sometimes we look at people that are doing those things and go, well, that's not me. Well, it wasn't you either. You decided that it was going to become you, and then you are taking the action to become something that you have not been before, to become someone that you have not been before. And, when someone gets that clear and is that committed, it's inevitable as to what will happen. Now, I'm excited to get into how the results have started to show up and what you've been doing to create those. So you're at the point where you're getting your license now, you're not able to do anything. You're the week before your test essentially. And clearly you're like chomping at the bit to get going, to be able to do the things that a licensed agent would be doing. So tell us about, like, as you came out of the gates, what were the things that you focused on?
So basically, what I focused on, right? So right before I came out of the gate, the first day my license gets activated, I get one under contract. It's funny. It's my buddy. He like loved this house and everything. and like is later that night. And like I just get my license, like I barely get anything to go. We go check out this house immediately. And he's like, I want it. I'm like, okay. And the next day, like so we get under contract after everything. I quit my job. I quit it. Cold turkey. Nothing. Like, I'm telling you guys, nothing in the bank. I quit. And it's a 30-day close and all that. But we're starting at this process. And I just remember when I first got into it, it's hard. I have no sales background. Like no one in my family, like I have nothing, right? So like my coach and my boss, we're going over scripting, because we all know you got to make calls, right? You have to make calls, and you got to make them genuine calls. You got to make sure these people trust you, right? And I just remember my first 3 months, like I am dialing the phone, like I'm dialing. It's during the winter, it's in November. And on top of that, like just to make ends meet right now, I'm a high school basketball ref. So every night I'm refing basketball too. So before that, I'd probably go show a house or two, go ref 2 hours, 3 hours. And then after that, I'd probably have to go show another house. Like I'm doing whatever it takes. Like I'm not going to lose. Like I'm not going to fail. Uh,
Pause. You get one in contract very quickly after you get licensing, you decide to quit your job.
yeah. Yeah.
So, some people would say, oh my goodness, that's reckless. You've gone through your savings to get licensed. You've got, a baby at home and a wife, what are you doing? And that concept is called, for people that have read the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, which if you have not read that book, it is one of the best books of all time if you want to create high levels of success at any level in your life. And that concept is called burning the boats or burning the ships. And it's that idea of in times where all of the cargo and people would come on ships, that when you burn them, there's no, like, you're on the island. There's not any getting off the island because the ship is gone. So you did that in the form of quitting your job, which I have a belief that when someone's back is up against the wall, it's the greatest gift in the world. And most of us don't ever want to get uncomfortable to actually have our back up against the wall. And it's when our backs are up against the wall that the magic happens and the miracles happen, because we find a new gear and we become willing to do whatever it takes versus willing to do what we feel like doing in the moment to create an outcome, because literally life depends on it, right? So I know you were having a lot of conversations, and we'll talk about how many conversations you were actually having, but what was the conversation that you were having with people as you're making those calls as a brand new agent?
So when I was making those calls, like, yeah, we were going over scripting, before, like my boss and my team, they wanted to make sure, like, hey, Dawson, like, you got to know the scripting. Like, you were a home buyer, you're a first time home buyer. Like, the stress of buying your first house. And I do. Basically, like, when I do it, like, when I go out and talk to people, that's my strong point, because I want to build a relationship and I want to keep that relationship. Like, I want to show people, like, I'm authentic. Like, I actually care about your feelings. Like, I care. Like, when I first started, like, calling people and stuff, like, we had, like, basically we call it the pond, and that's all I could do with our signed leads at the time. And I'd call these people and be like, hey, I saw that you registered on our website, and I was wondering if there's any way I could further assist you. Well, like everyone else, hung up on, right? And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, no, let's build a conversation, talk a little bit before, get a little personal, remember the little things, right? I call this lady, she's in Twin Falls. She's like, this is probably like my 20th call I ever made. And anyways, I talked to her. I'm like, hey, I'm Dawson Baker. Going over this spill. But anyways, I'm going over the spill, and I tell her, like, hey, like, is there any way I could further assist you? First thing, she's like, hey, my mom's very sick. Like, I don't have time for this right now. I'm like, totally fine. I'll give you a call later on. I give it about a week, and I'm like, I call her again, and I'm like, I'm not going to bring up her name or anything. I said, hey, this is Dawson with Revista Realty. I called you last week. I the last time we talked, your mom was sick. I wanted to check on you and her and see how you guys are doing. That little thing right there, that little attention grabber, she's like, oh my gosh, she's actually doing really well. I can't believe you remember that, right? That made that connection. The little things can make big drives, right? It takes just a little steps of growing. And when you make these conversations, it could be the first time you meet them, it could be the 20th time you meet them. You just got to show that you care. If you show that you care, you're winning it all because you genuinely care. Like I care about people. I don't want somebody to just buy a house because they feel forced to. I want them to buy a house because they want to. Like I tell people, I had one person, his name's Jordan Hansen. He says, people don't buy a house because of interest rates or prices. They don't. They really don't. He's like, they buy because they need a life-changing events. They buy because life-changing events. They really don't care. It's a little bit of a motive, but it's all about a life-change event. That's why they buy.
I love that. So you're 9 months in now, currently, to
Yeah.
your real estate career, 9 whole months, and 24 are closed. I know you're carrying 5 to 6, that are pending and you
Yep.
get. And you said one thing when we were talking a couple of conversations back. I said, how many conversations are you actually having a week?
Oh, uh, yeah. Going back at it, like a day, I tell myself 15 conversations. Talk, no, like 1 minute, like actual conversation a day. And it's hard because like you're starting to pick up, like when I first got started, right? All I did was I remember making my phone calls. Like at that time, I was trying to get 20 conversations a day. I was trying. It's super hard, but it is doable. Like you can do it. Um, like my boss, like if you guys want this or anything, this is my actual schedule that I have to do. Just DM me. Uh, like it straight up tells me like, hey, like in the morning. So I used to work out twice a day, and I still am just certain days of the week. Like I do like 1 hour routine workout in the morning, right? Cold
Well,
plunge.
let's talk about your schedule. I know now that
Yeah,
you
yeah,
mentioned that you have it and people see
yeah,
it. Tell
yeah.
us what your schedule looks like, because I know that in the minds of a lot of people, particularly if they look at somebody that's like, oh my goodness, 9 months and 24 transactions, this guy's not doing anything but working,
Oh yeah.
because when your livelihood depends on your next closing, sometimes everything else in life moves off the plate to make sure you're out there getting the next closing, which is the breakdown of families, it's the breakdown of health. It's not sustainable in the long term, and it's the quickest way to lose your joy. So when, we talk a lot in the conversations that we have on these calls about the mindset of having it all and an and versus I can work and be a productive and super successful real estate agent, or I can be a family guy, but I can't do both because of what it takes to be successful in real estate. And there are some people that think that way. And then, there's all kinds of interesting perspectives that people pick up. And so it's great when we've got somebody like you that is a model of creating in all those spaces, because clearly your family is important to you. Clearly your health is important to you and
Yeah.
training physically. Clearly succeeding in business is important to you. And clearly growing is important to you because you're learning and doing the things to continue to learn and grow. So tell us what like a sample day looks like in your schedule.
So the sample day, like I go through this every day since I started day one. I have my morning routine, the workout in the morning. Like I'm telling you, the cold plunge will change your life. It changes your life. It sucks. I'm not gonna lie, it sucks, but it makes the mental clarity, right? Like
What
I
time do
have
you
to
do
be.
that?
What was that?
What time do you do that?
So I used to wake up at like 5 o'clock, right? And now I have to give myself like 15 extra minutes because I get to choose every other day: go play basketball in the morning or go work out. But like at the beginning, it was like purely working out because I'm reffing basketball at night at that time. And I go in the morning. I'd go like 4:15. I'd go work out at the gym. I'd get in the sauna, and as soon as I got home, before I got my ice bath, I take the coldest shower ever. And it sucks. It's in the winter, you guys. Like Here in Idaho, it is cold. It is so cold. And I'm like, I just got back in from there's snow on the ground. I have my boots on walking in back from the gym into my house. And I'm like, I just want to get in a warm shower. And I told myself, no, like you got a big day ahead of you. You got to make calls. And I'm like, turn that shower cold. And then when I got the cold plunge, I'm telling you, it was even worse. I would jump in that thing and oh, I had it in my garage, and I'm like, this sucks. This sucks so bad, but I did it right. I did it for the mental clarity, and like obviously it helps with physical everything. It changes your life completely. Like I tell everyone with my schedule, I'll tell you completely how it is. I get to the office 8:10 to 8:15. Everything starts at 8:30. So like we'll do our morning huddle. I basically have 30 minutes from 8:30 to 9, plan my day, what I'm going to do. Then as soon as that 30 minutes up, we're having a team meeting and we're doing script and role play. Script and role play is huge, especially if you're a new agent. It's huge. Like we all know, like we've done it before. We're like making jokes about it, you know? But like sometimes like you need someone to tell you from your team, oh, you could do that better, you know? Like we're gonna give you some hard questions. So they're throwing me like curveballs, you know. Come on, Dawson, what are you gonna say? You know? And I listened from one other agent, and I'm gonna tell you, I'm so glad I listened to him. He told me this. He's like, Dawson, he's like, I'm like a bottom feeder and a top feeder. He's like, you're like a shark. He's like, I love it and I love how you are. And he says, I want to give you one piece of advice. Because I asked him, I said, what's one advice you could tell a new agent? And he's like, it's okay to say, I don't know. Let me get the answer. Don't go out of nowhere and be like, oh yeah, like this, you know. If you don't know, just say, I don't know. Let me get the answer for you. Let me get the answer and double confirm. Because you never want to go backpedaling on that. It's okay to say, I don't know. Like, let me double confirm with you and get the correct answer. Right? And just going over everything, like we're going back into script, right? We do script, and then right after script, we're going into phone calls.
Okay, so
I
hold on.
go, okay, we're stopped.
Just for everybody. You're up earlier than most
Yes.
to go train your physical body
Mm-hmm.
because the physiology of your body is connected to mental health.
Absolutely.
Changing your physical physiology changes your mindset, it changes your attitude, it changes how you perceive yourself, and everything related to performance is changing your physical physiology. And then by 8:10, 8:15, you are in the office and you're getting ready for prepping for what you're going to do for the day, getting all that done, and now you're into scripting. So now you're training your mind
Yeah.
in addition to training your physical body, for the words to come out of your mouth to make you the best. Now, how many days a week are you doing role play?
We're doing it every Monday through Friday when everyone's in the office.
Every day.
Like every day. Like every day. It could be 10 minutes. It could take an hour. Because we're all there. Like our team, we all want to grow. We all want to be successful. Like we are training. Script and role play is huge. You practice how you play, right? It's any sport. You got to practice and you're going to play. Um, like going on top of it, like we're scripting 30 minutes. On average, I'm going to say like 30 minutes. If we have like other meetings and we're like, okay, 15, like 2 people go today, 2 people go the next day. And then like I tell everyone, like I've switched my schedule ever since I've started, like twice. I just minor tweaks, right? Minor tweaks. Um, I've got like a really cool thing I'll show everyone. Like it's 5 to Thrive, and it will help. Like every agent, like more than willing to send you it. It's just what you need to do during the day, right? With calls. So my first, I'd say 3 months, right? My first 3 months, I closed 3 deals from November to December. Those calls during those days, right after script and role play, they weren't just an hour. Like they were like 2 hours to 4 hours, just calls, right? Just calls. Like nothing can get in my way. During that time, I take like a little break every hour, check emails. At that time, I'm not busy yet. Like I'm not very busy. I'm making sure every email and my task lists are checked off. The beginning, like I'm telling you, The beginning is always going to be the hardest because when you're starting, those calls suck. I'm not going to lie, they suck. But now I'm so busy. I have to literally dedicate myself. Like we just did a reevaluation like 2 weeks ago because I need to critique my whole schedule now. When I call right after script and role play now, it's an hour. I put my timer on my phone, an hour. I call for an hour. No disturbing, no TC can bother me, no emails, just straight calling conversations. Like literally. And like I read Tyson's thing. So like yeah, every Monday's role play is a lot longer. It's like an hour. And like Wednesdays too with our team meetings. We go everything because we want to go over our wins, right? Like we want to literally go over our wins and projections and everything. Everything on there, like this whole system and this schedule is going to help you grow. I see there's a question.
I see it and it went away. Who was it?
Anthony, was it Anthony?
Yeah, sorry, I clicked on the button by mistake. Go ahead.
Oh, all good.
So you're doing the practice, then you're immediately getting on the court, so to speak, and doing the actual playing, right? The calls,
Yeah.
the conversations. And I mean, it sucks two times. It sucks in the beginning when you're new and you haven't done it, and it sucks the second time if you're not doing it regularly because you don't have the words in your mouth because you've lost your cadence and the rhythm because you're not doing something every day. Right. So even if you do have experience as an agent, like every day, the getting up and actually doing the work and being in those conversations are, so key. So you in after the calling, then what comes after that?
After calling, we're checking emails, we're going over our task list, we're making sure we're all caught up, right? Well, usually after those calls, after whatever few hours, people are going to start calling you back, usually. So you're going to start answering those calls. And the whole goal is like, I need to set an appointment every day. I want an appointment every day. So we try setting those appointments during those calls because basically right after like 12 o'clock, like we're wanting to start to have appointments from 1 to 5, maybe even later. Like I'm telling you, when I first started, when you're an agent, it's not just an 8 to 4. It's not. Like you're going, like I'm telling you, sometimes I would start and send houses at like 6 o'clock in the morning while I was in the sauna at the gym. I'd send houses to people. No joke. I'd send houses to people and I bet they hated it. But hey, they always remembered me, right? And like I would go, like sometimes I wouldn't get home till like 9:30 after showing those houses. Like when I was refing those basketball games, like I got done showing that game. That game got done about like 7:30. I got like 30 minutes to get to there and I got to show that house, right? And it's all about your presence. And you got to show people like everyone's going through things. Everyone is. But why go in life being unhappy? I'm just happy for the opportunity. I have the opportunity. I'm going to take it. I'm going to run with it. Like everyone here on here has probably had deals, right? Like, oh my gosh, like it's like fumbling a football, right? Like we're running towards the end zone and you fumble it. Oh, transaction, bad inspection, client gets cold feet, right? Like I told you, like I had one, like this was, it was like a month and a half ago. It was a dumpster fire at the end. Dumpster, like we were under contract for like 2 months and then all of a sudden we're getting like 3 days before closing and it's looking bad, right? Like all I can tell you is with your clients, be genuine with them, understand their feelings. There's so many emotions going on. Understand their feelings and actually get to know them as a person. Like I was telling my team that whole time, that was probably the stressful, like a really stressful transaction. I said, as soon as that ball drops, you pick it up and you secure it and you do not let go. You just help your clients. You got to prove that you care. If you care, you're going to win.
So now here's a question, because anybody that's been in real estate more than a minute and gotten more than a couple deals going at the same time, the number one thing most people stop doing is making the calls.
Oh yeah.
Transaction now, or I've got multiple transactions that are going and I don't have time to make the calls because I got to handle this or I got to handle that.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say to someone like, what's that experience been for you? Are your calls negotiable or non-negotiable? And under what situation are they negotiable, or are they just not negotiable no matter how busy you get?
It's honestly, it's not negotiable because in the morning now, like I got to make those calls. I got to do my follow up. Like we have a perfect program, making sure we're following up right. Like it's not negotiable. Like I remember first time going to my boss, I had 3 under contract, right? And I'm like, I am so stressed out. I don't want these to like fall through. And then all of a sudden I'm talking to my boss. She's got like 12 pending, right? And she's just like kind of laughing at me. I'm like, I don't know how you do it. Like I tell her that I don't know how you're doing it. And she's like, Dawson, it never like the stress never gets worse. It always kind of maintains, right? Like she has like 12, 20, and I'm just laughing. Like I'm just laughing about it, looking at it now, because those 3 or 2 during that month, oh, it's so stressful. And then everyone's going through it. And then when I finally got 7, like under contract all at the same time, it's like, okay, this is getting easier. Just follow your schedule. Follow your schedule. Keep doing everything that you're doing. Like, yeah, these calls, they're important. Like in our business, we got to keep going with it. We got to make those calls if we want business to grow.
I love that. So, you just touched on something that I think is so important for any real estate agent, regardless of where they're at in the business. And that is a capacity issue. Because, and I've heard it explained this way, is going through a buffet line and you get to the meatballs. And if you get to the meatballs and you've got one meatball on your plate, that meatball, let's call it a transaction. And you're like, everything's about the one meatball. I've got this transaction going right now. And then if you got 20 meatballs on your plate and 3 or 4 are falling off because of how many you've got, those 3 or 4 that are falling off are going to fall off anyway. They're never going to stay on the plate. We all have transactions that's happened to. Like it's that for whatever reason, it doesn't stay on the plate. And now you have nothing else going on because you've got all of your focus on this one transaction. Or, you get consumed by one transaction. But what you're talking about is, you're three transactions going on at the same time, you're losing your mind, and your boss is like, listen, young man,
Yeah.
I've got, 10, 12, 20 all going at the same time, personal deals, right? And so then you see what happens is that the more you load the plate with meatballs, your ability to focus on the things that are the most important, become more efficient, keeping all of the routines in place to keep future business still coming, because you're not giving up your routine for anything, that morning routine personally and professionally, but you start to become better at handling a higher capacity because you become more efficient and effective with where your time's going, which now you're like, oh yeah, I got 6, 7 deals in contract all going at the same time. And it feels maybe easier than the 3, or maybe it's the
Oh, yeah.
same, because you've gotten better. And this is a thing where a lot of agents don't lean in. They won't let themselves go to that place. And so they will come from a place of scarcity and focus on the one and go like, I got to just get this one done before I move to the next, because I got to get this done and I got to do this well, or these 1 and these 2 versus no. A change in mindset is, what if I could have 5, 6, 7 like going all the time? And who's the person that I would have to be as an agent to be that agent while having a life, while getting family time, while taking care of my physical health, and while making sure to do, my business development. So what I would love to do in the last 5 minutes that we have, because I'm sure there are people that would just love to ask you a question or two,
Yeah.
is give the space for that to happen. I hit on some of the high ones just from being licensed and in and around the industry since 2005, just knowing kind of like what the life of a real estate agent can be like. Anyone have any questions that they'd like to come off mute and ask Dawson?
I put mine in the chat, but I was curious to see, Dawson, that piece of paper that you have on your desk that shows your routine or your schedule. I think you just showed it to us briefly, and then I wanted to pick your brain or get a little bit more information on your Thrive to 5 comment that you
Yeah.
referenced
Yeah.
as well. And I don't know how to get that from you. Yeah, that piece of paper.
I will send it, right? This was actually from a different person, and we'll just say in Utah. And like when we first started this, like this thing like changed everything. Like I'll send it to Casey to send it to everyone. Like there's certain points that you have to hit every day. Your whole goal is to hit 5 a day points. And there's different like 10 SOI calls, 10 social media touches, social media posts, um, appointments, under contracts, right? There's so many. Like, and I will send this to Casey so she can send out all of these to people and let them know. Like I'm telling you, like going back and looking at it, like all this stuff, like my boss and like the team, they helped me get to this because we all start somewhere. We don't know where to go, right? Um, like I'm not giving enough credit to my boss. Like I'm really not. Like I had someone believe in me and I took it and ran with it. And with her husband Tyson, like they gave me an opportunity. And like I said, like I'm not letting anyone down. Most of all, I'm not letting myself down. But like I like just touching a little bit, like with my boss, she has 5 kids. Okay. I have one and I'm trying to maintain my life with one child. Like right now, last year she did 127 deals. Last year. Like number one agent in our brokerage, everything. She's an animal. And I always go for guidance to her and her husband. And I ask, like, I always ask Desi, I'm like, how do you do it? Right? Like, I'm struggling as a father and a husband right now. Like, how do you do it? Everyone struggles, right? You're going to find at those certain moments, like, hey, family time is family time. Then it's work, right? It is really, really, it is a struggle, but let me tell you, everything's worth it. You will figure out what's the important things, right? Like work is super, super important, right? But that little bit of family time, you don't get time back. Like I tell everyone, when I lost my brother, oh, if I could take it back, oh, I would every single day. You do not get time back. You know what's important, but when you're growing your business as a beginning agent, like there is sacrifice, but remember, you don't get time back.
I love that. So as we wrap up the call for today, just to kind of like anchor, once again, I want to acknowledge you for being an integrator, right? You clearly have had an incredible mentor and coach and friend that
Yeah.
brought you into the industry and that is walking that path with you. And, we rise or fall based on who we surround ourselves with. And
Yeah.
so obviously chosen really well in the people that you're surrounding yourself with. And, there's this idea of you put your foot on the gas and I will match you energy for energy and to however far that you're willing to go, right? And it's clear that you have, you've done that, right? You had somebody that believed in you, somebody that was going to invest in you and put their money where their mouth was and has followed through and doing that. And you keep consistently showing up and doing the work. And that is, that is the name of the game. Sometimes we like to overcomplicate life and this business. And the truth is, it comes down to a few simple things. Number one, having a vision that you are inspired by that is going to get you up in the morning to do the things that are uncomfortable, like a cold plunge or role play or picking up the phone, God forbid, and talking to someone, right?
Yeah.
And then surrounding yourself with people that are committed to growing so that you can continue to grow as well and being a person of service, which you clearly are based on your come from of how you help clients and your people in your life. So I'm really excited to follow your journey as you continue. Clearly, anyone that's in the Burley area in Idaho, you've got your guy, Dawson, and we're looking forward to watching your journey progress and the lives and people that will be helped and changed as a result of your commitment and dedication to being the absolute best that you can be. And so thank you so much for being on the call this morning and everyone for listening. For those of you that are catching it on the replay, success leaves clues. And if one can, anyone can, he can, it means you can too, if you're willing to do the things that he's been willing to do. So everyone, make it a great rest of your day. Thanks so much for being here, and we'll see you the first week of September. Goodness, the first week of September. Yes. Okay. Thanks, guys.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. Bye.